All right, we're here at the launch of the Union Cup Dublin 2019. Takes place at DCU June 7th to 9th, and I'm delighted to say at the launch is Nigel Owens, as you can see. Good afternoon to you, Nigel.
Good afternoon, how are you?
I'm excellent. Will you talk to us a little bit about the importance of the Union Cup, what it means to Dublin and the wider LGBT community?
Well, I think it's hugely important, because what the Union Cup and teams like the Emerald Warriors do is they allow an environment where people in the LGBT community can participate and play in rugby and feel safe and feel comfortable within that environment, because still in society and still in all sports there is an element of a minority where it won't make people feel safe, people from the LGBT community. Now, a lot of people in the LGBT community feel that they can't play in their local rugby clubs within their local community, and that's not because those local community clubs are not inclusive and not welcoming, because most of them are. There are various different reasons. The individuals may feel not comfortable in that environment for whatever reason. Maybe they don't feel their ability is good enough in that environment. Maybe they feel they only want to play rugby because they're playing with their group of friends. Like a lot of people play rugby because of their group of friends. So there are many different reasons. And so what the teams like the Emerald Warriors and the Union Cup as a competition then allows a competition for LGBT clubs like the Emerald Warriors and many others across Europe to come together in a tournament which all the other local community clubs will have within their own leagues and within their own tournaments, for example. So it is hugely important, I think, because rugby is an inclusive sport. There is no doubt about that. I wouldn't be able to referee today if it wasn't an inclusive sport. So nobody can say that rugby is not inclusive. Rugby is, but there are still barriers. There is still a minority of people within rugby and within all sports that don't like people for whatever reason, whether it's their sexuality, the colour of the skin, their religious beliefs, or from different countries. So, this is a huge step, I think, in progressiveness and in breaking down those barriers that people are able to participate in rugby and be able to feel themselves. I think it's hugely important as well that it doesn't become isolated, that the LGBT community are the only ones who can play rugby in the LGBT community, and in our local community and clubs are not welcoming. If you're LGBT, you can't play in those clubs. We can't have that difference between them. We want people to play in whatever club they want to, but until people feel comfortable in doing that, then it's hugely important, the Union Cup and the great work and the clubs like the Emerald Warriors are doing.
Yeah, it's a good point. Just something that I was interested in to hear you speak a little bit more about maybe was the point about general abuse. And I know that one report that I read, it was from the UK, was saying that a huge percentage, over 80% I think, of gay men and women are still the subject of homophobic insults over the course of playing in sport. We've obviously seen, you mentioned the colour of skin, we've seen Danny Rose's comments recently about I can't wait to see the back of football, and there's been various theories put out there about how we tackle that, whether it's do we have a points deduction, do we ban a team from a tournament? What's your opinion about how to take that on?
I think it's very difficult to ban a team from a tournament and to take away the points deduction, for example, because the majority of those clubs and the supporters of the clubs, the players within the clubs, will be hugely good, decent people who will respect people who are different to what they are. And we have to remember now, it's a minority of people out there. So the minority of people who shout racial abuse, homophobic abuse from the stadiums, whatever that may be, at players or at officials or at anybody involved in the game, are just generally bad people who don't like people for whatever reason. And if their team gets deducted points, those type of people don't really care. So the people who are punished are the rest of the good people within that club who may be doing great work.
What's the solution?
I think the answer is in identifying those people and getting them out to the stadiums and banning them from the stadiums. And the people who can really make a difference are the people who are in the stadiums themselves. The people who don't stand by and say nothing. If somebody's in the stadium and they see somebody shouting racial abuse or homophobic abuse, that they turn around and tell those people, hey, that's enough, that's not acceptable here. Hopefully that'll be enough to stop it. If it doesn't, then you bring it to the attention of the club or the steward so they can get those people out to the stadiums and to deal with it. So to me, that is the answer, I think, because I think, imagine banning a club or abandoning a game where the 99% of the spectators in there are good, decent people. It's them you're punishing. You're not actually punishing that individual or that small group or minority, because they're the type of people who won't really care. They may even think that they've achieved something by getting the game banned because they've shouted abuse at a black player or a gay player on the field. So I think that is the best way to deal with it, I think. And as long as those clubs are doing all they can in identifying those individuals and getting them out to the stadiums and out of that environment, then, you know, those clubs should be supported in what they're trying to do and trying to achieve. And it's those people in there, really. I've always, you know, said that, you know, not only do we have a responsibility in what we say and what we do, you know, we sometimes have more responsibility when we stand by and say and do nothing, and that goes to the people, you know, don't stand by and say nothing when you hear unacceptable abuse being shouted. If you are the majority and turn around to the person and say, hey, that's enough, you know, you're not welcome here if that's your attitude, that's what really makes a difference. And those are the people that can really make the difference, I believe.
And it's not just a sport thing, obviously it's something that
it's in society and everyday life as well.
You're such an eloquent and passionate advocate and ambassador for LGBT rights, obviously. I did wonder if it was ever something that you thought, Jesus, I'm tired, or I'm you know, your passion for it diminishes at any point, or is it, how does that weigh on you?
No, it doesn't at all, really, to be honest with you, because I know what it's like to be in those dark times. I know what it's like to come within 20, 30 minutes of losing my own life, because I was in a very, very dark place and couldn't feel I could live my life anymore because I was gay. I didn't want to be gay, and the environment around me was not giving the impression that it would be welcoming for me as a gay person. So I know what it's like, and I think when we make the environment a better and safer place, that people are able to be themselves and don't have to fear about living their normal lives as a gay person or as a black person, and not feeling, you know, that you are going to be the subject of racism and treated differently or homophobic abuse. So I do think that, you know, the more people who speak up about their own experiences, the more people who speak up and show that, look, it doesn't matter who you are, you know, as long as you're a decent person, then you should be treated the same as everybody else. So, and, you know, if by me speaking out about it, and if I need to speak about it every day and it's making a difference, then I'll do so. I hope there'll come a time where I won't have to speak about it anymore, because it's not an issue in sport, and it's not an issue in society and everyday life. And I think we're a long way from there, but we certainly are in a much better place now than we've been in the last 10, 20, 30 years or so. But, you know, we are still seeing a minority of people out there who are just bad people, but hopefully as time goes by, those people will get less and less, hopefully. And I don't think we can underestimate as well the influence that each individual has on helping that progressiveness in society, and also in educating young people as well. Education plays a huge part in just educating children to accept people who are different to them but are just like them. You know, and I think that's hugely important. So educating people is hugely important as well in making a difference. Yeah,
well, for today it's a pleasure to listen to you speak on the topic, so long may that continue. Rugby World Cup year, obviously, and we've been speaking to a lot of players about the nerves that kind of kick in at this time of the year, and interested in all the various topics in that regard as well. One interesting piece that jumped out that I wanted to ask you about, and I know you've read it, Matt Williams in the Irish Times on Friday was talking about the offside laws in rugby, and as he sees it, they're not being refereed at the minute, that actually the referee has too much going on at line out, breakdown, tackle area. There's too much going on, shouldn't have to have eyes in the back of their head essentially to referee, as he sees it, infringes in those instances. What's your take on it?
Well, if the player stayed on side, we wouldn't have to worry about it, wouldn't we? Look, every game is different. And the laws are there for a specific reason, to allow a game of rugby. And it's up to us as referees to make sure we apply those laws. And as long as we referee the laws and ensure that the players are behind the hindmost foot and that there is space for teams to play, then the game will benefit to that. And I think on the whole, we do that. Now, there are some games, there will be games where a referee, could even be myself, there are games where a referee wasn't that hot on the offside that day, and there were a couple of offsides in the game that weren't picked up, and that may then contribute to a lack of space in the game. But I don't think that is a huge concern week in, week out. And if it is something that's a concern in that game, then the referee will pick that up in his review. His performance reviewer will pick it up in his review, and his referee's manager will pick it up in that review. And it's something then that he will be aware of and he'll address in the next game. So, we need to work hard and make sure that we continue to work hard in making sure that we get space. And that involves your assistant referees in helping you as a referee as well. So I am not sort of overly concerned about it, but yes, there is a fair point that, we need to make sure that if there is a trend of the offside line being illegally defended, then we as referees need to make sure that we work hard on that and that we deal with the issues. Like we 3 or 4 years ago, the contact in the air was a huge issue in the game. What we did as referees, we dealt with it, under the guidance of Alan Roland, who's the World Rugby referee manager now. Look, we need, and Joel Jute before him, and the various referees, managers of different competitions. We need to get this out of the game, and by refereeing it hard but fair, we don't see much contact in the air anymore. We had the same with the neck rolls and the spear tackles. We refereed them hard when they became an issue. You don't see them in the game. So if the offside line becomes an issue, rest assured that as referees, under the guidance of people like Alan Roland, we will be told, look, we need to be firmer with this, and we will be firmer with it, and then it will not become an issue in the game if it is.
And I suppose his thing was that he had watched, I think it was the Heineken Cup last weekend in Super Rugby, and he was saying that every game I watched, players are cheating, they're at it everywhere, it can't be regulated. It seemed like it was the Wild West, I think might have been an expression that he used at one point, but your sense is it's not quite that, there might be an issue and we'll deal with it. Is that your sense?
Well, I refereed in Saracen Glasgow in that quarter-final that weekend, and I've reviewed the game, and my performance reviewer has reviewed the game as well, and I think I gave 2 or 3 penalties for offside in the game, and I didn't pick a clear and obvious one up that should have been penalised. Right. So as far as I'm aware, in that game, it was not an issue. I've seen other games where it's not been issues. I have seen games where the offside line could have been refereed better. I've refereed games myself when I've reviewed the game and thought I should have been a bit better on the offside lines. A couple of offsides here I've missed. So, it's just a referee then focusing on that, I think. And look, you're always working hard to improve as a referee. There's always boundaries in the game which the players will push, and it's up to you as a referee to address it.
On that one, do you think is the game getting you've obviously your very famous statement about soccer and that sort of thing, which in some regards I'm sure at some point you were like, geez, I wish I hadn't said that, but sometimes it seems to me, and actually we've had a high profile Irish player in studio recently who was talking about the treatment that he gets from the opposition, and sometimes he'll think about exaggerating it. You're smiling because I think you know what I'm talking about. He'll maybe exaggerate the contact so that you know what's happening, or sometimes he'll retaliate, but ultimately his overall point was, I'm not sure what to do to make sure that the referee knows this is happening. So forgetting about that instance, do you see those trends in the game generally, that there is more of that, like, diving culture is maybe overstated?
I don't think it's an area of a huge concern at the moment in the game, but there is no doubt there are occasions when it does happen. It's happened over the couple of seasons where players have taken a dive, or a player comes up and waving and asking for a yellow card to be given to a player, and we don't want that in the game. What the players need to do is just to trust the referee, that the referee will deal with it. And if the referee's not picking something up that's going on in the game, then it's up to the captain, when the time is right, to speak to the referee and say, and I always tell as a captain, look, if there's an area of concern in the game which you think that I am not picking up for whatever reason, or my team isn't, then talk to me about it. And the captain will tell me, look, for example, look, Nigel, we think that the offside line seems to be, creeping with them quite a bit. Yeah. And I say, okay, I'll have a look. And I may have a look and think, no, they're fine, they're onside.
Does that happen often? That specific
it doesn't happen often, but captains do come up to me, and then you'll have a look, and that's a fair point, and then you speak to the opposition team, look, and then you deal with it like that. So there is a way for the players to convey that message to the referee without bringing in the theatrics to the game, and you just have to trust the referee to do his job and do that. Now, if a referee doesn't do that, then it will be highlighted in his performance review that he should have been better on this certain area of the game, and it is something then that he will address going forward. If he doesn't address it, then it will affect his performance and quite frankly so his appointments as well. So there is a way. So look, we don't want to see the diving about. We don't want to see players running up and surrounding referees and questioning decisions all the time. There is a proper channel of communication in a respectful way that can be done on the field to deal with any issues that arise. And you are right what you're saying, that we have seen isolated instances of creeping into the game, and it's up to us as referees to make sure that it becomes something that happens on the odd occasion rather than something becomes the norm.
Just finally, we mentioned the Rugby World Cup. Obviously Wales' dominance in the Six Nations is a bit of a nightmare for us here, and might be a bit of a nightmare for you as well. Might hinder your opportunities obviously come Rugby World Cup, but they're flying it obviously.
Oh, they are. No, listen, I will be a very, very, very happy Welshman if I am sitting in the stadium watching Wales lift the Webb Ellis Trophy. There's no doubt about that, because to me your country becomes before anything else that you as an individual want to achieve. And look, Wales are on a 14-game unbeaten run. They'll be going into the World Cup quietly confident in
not so
their
quiet
habit.
Generally in Wales.
I don't know. We're quite a shy
Really?
nation when it comes here. We don't like to boast much, so we keep things nice and quiet. I think it's a Celtic thing maybe. And look, they're in a good place at the moment, but they'll have to continue that habit of winning and play well to beat some really good teams in the World Cup. I think this year's World Cup is probably one of the most open ever, I think, where you're looking at probably 5, 6, 7 teams, maybe even 8, who are quite capable of beating anybody on that day, which means they're quite capable of going on to win that World Cup, and that's lovely, and I'm sure everybody's getting excited about it. I know we're very excited about it in Wales, that's for sure.
Yeah, why not? Nigel, thanks a million.